Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. The war between Russia and Ukraine has seriously escalated these days. Russia has expressed its willingness to talk to the international community, while the U.S. behind Ukraine is running out of weapons in its arsenal. Hungary's prime minister thinks that it will take President Trump to reach a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. The Democrats have gone too extreme to take on such a heavy responsibility. In fact, many of the Democratic administration's practices have also upset aspiring politicians in the party. The Hawaiian congresswoman has quit the Democratic Party. I wonder if this will drive more of them away. However, to give them some credit, the Democratic Party has not been soft on the CCP. Recently, tough sanctions have been imposed on the CCP's chip industry, which is enough to deter the CCP from competing with the United States in this area. Okay, let's get into it. The United States has been Ukraine's largest arms donor since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th. The U.S. has provided more than $16.8 billion in military aid to Kiev. However, the AFP reported on Saturday, October 8th, that the U.S. military will soon be unable to supply Ukraine with the advanced equipment that it has provided so far, since the U.S. stockpile is falling to its lowest level, especially in terms of ammunition. Mark Cassian of the U.S. Center for Strategic International Studies said that some U.S. equipment stocks have fallen to the lowest levels that are needed for planning and training. He said it could take years to restock to the levels that existed before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. has limited stocks of ammunition for the HIMARS, for example. Washington has delivered about 8,500 Javelin missiles to Kiev, but the annual production of the missiles is only 1,000. Even if the U.S. government has released funds to accelerate production, it will take several years for the United States to replenish its stockpile. Cassian is a former Marine colonel who was in charge of Pentagon weapons procurement from 2008 to 2015. He said in a recent note that in the future, older equipment will be an increasingly important part of the transfers. AFP quoted an unnamed U.S. military official as saying, "We are learning the lesson that the U.S. military's ammunition needs are much higher than expected in a major power conflict." Because of the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, the defense industry cut back significantly on production. Within a few years, defense and aircraft manufacturing groups dropped from 51 to 5. Now, the U.S. government must convince the industry to restart production. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Tuesday that Russia is willing to talk to the West about the war in Ukraine and does not reject a meeting between the leaders of Russia and the United States during next month's Group of 20 G20 summit. But no serious offer of talks have been received so far. U.S. officials have claimed that the United States is open to negotiate, but Russia has rejected them. Lavrov said, "This is a lie. We have not received any serious invitation to engage with us." Lavrov believes that the U.S. has long been indirectly involved in the war in Ukraine. However, Russia would not reject a meeting between Putin and Biden on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Indonesia in mid-November, and they would consider such an offer if it were received. Biden said last week that he was not sure when asked if he would meet with Putin at the G20. This year's G20 summit is expected to be held in Bali, Indonesia, on November 15th and 16th. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said that the ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine must be negotiated by the United States and Russia. In addition, the U.S. negotiator should be President Donald Trump. In a public interview in Berlin, Germany on Tuesday, October 11th, Orban said the ceasefire resolution cannot be achieved by Russia and Ukraine, but should be coordinated by both the U.S. and Russia. Because for Ukraine, Russia is an invader. Ukraine must fight to resist the invasion. However, the military support that they receive comes from the United States. The war continues today only because the Americans want it to be so. That's why the U.S. must reach an agreement with Russia before the war can end. Orban added that Biden is not the man to negotiate because what Biden so far has done is too extreme. Biden has called Putin a butcher, a war criminal, and a murderous dictator since the war began. Because of this, it would be too difficult to get the two of them to negotiate peace now. What I'm about to say to you is probably shocking to some, but President Trump is the hope for peace, at least according to Viktor Orban. As a right-wing political figure, Orban has been railing against the sanctions that were imposed on Russia by the European Union. However, so far Hungary has always voted in favor of the EU's punitive measures against Russia. Last Friday, October 7th, the United States introduced a sweeping export control measure. It is aimed at curbing the Communist Party of China's use of U.S. chip technology. This way, the CCP cannot develop supercomputers, AI, and other technologies for military and surveillance purposes through its civil-military integration policy. The scale of these sanctions extends to the entire Chinese chip industry. The series of measures, analysts say, could be the largest policy shift in U.S. technology exports to China since the 1990s. Some industry sources said that the new ban, if strictly enforced, would amount to a return to the Stone Age for the Chinese Communist Party's chip technology. White House officials say that the Chinese Communist Party's surveillance network is already one of the most sophisticated in the world, and the high-end computing power of U.S. chips, software, tools, and technology is helping to modernize the CCP's military. This modernization includes the development of weapons of mass destruction and the improvement of mass surveillance activities. Allowing the CCP access to state-of-the-art chips and to chip manufacturing equipment therefore poses profound national security risks. Douglas Fuller of the Copenhagen Business School said that the whole point of this policy is to stifle China's artificial intelligence and high-performance computing efforts, at least those related to the military, with the commercial damage being collateral. Brady Wang, an analyst at the technology marketing research firm Counterpoint, said that it would create huge problems for Beijing's strategy of fostering world-class companies. In addition, the new ban prohibits U.S. citizens or entities from working with Chinese chip makers unless they receive special approval. That may be of great concern to Chinese chip companies. One Taiwanese intelligence official estimates that as many as 200 U.S. citizens work for Chinese chip companies. If these people leave, Chinese chip development will be much more difficult. Carl Freund, a consultant at Artificial Intelligence, said it will take at least 5 to 10 years for the CCP to catch up with today's technology. The U.S. government's strategy is to deprive the CCP's semiconductor industry of the ability to localize. For this sanction, the U.S. government is using the Foreign Direct Product Rule, the FDPR. The FDPR rule applies not only to U.S. chip makers, but has restraining power over any chip company in the world that uses U.S. equipment or software. Today in the world, there is hardly a chip that is not made with U.S. tools or designed with U.S. software. In 2020, the Trump administration cut off supplies of Huawei chips by using the secret weapon of the FDPR. The FDPR crippled Huawei's smartphone business, and 2 years later, Huawei not only lost revenue, but also lost its industry leadership. Leaders of both parties in the U.S. Congress have praised this latest move by the Commerce Department against the CCP. We reported on Monday on Front Page that the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, has set up overseas police service stations in several countries around the world. This has extended the long arm of the CCP's public security policing overseas. The CCP itself admitted in government documents that 54 overseas police service stations have been involved in persuasion operations against Chinese residents overseas. They have been pressuring or threatening Chinese immigrants and their families to return to China to face criminal charges by the CCP. This so-called persuasive repatriation constitutes an illegal cross-border law enforcement action on foreign soil. It is a clear violation of international human rights laws, and it violates the territorial sovereignty of the host country. The overseas police stations also failed to register a liaison role with the CCP police in their host countries, which violates local country regulations. There are at least 54 CCP overseas police stations, according to the CCP. These stations are located in 30 countries, with 36 of them being stationed in Europe. Currently, the Irish and Spanish governments have launched investigations into the establishment of these overseas police service stations in their territories. The Irish Times reported that the Irish Parliament has questioned this behavior of the CCP, and the Dublin government has sought answers from the Chinese embassy regarding the establishment of these overseas police stations by the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese embassy has previously stated that the overseas police stations are to provide administrative assistance to Chinese nationals who are living in Ireland, such as assisting in renewing driver's licenses. It has denied that they are involved in law enforcement activities. Ireland's Justice Minister, Helen McEntee, said that there is no doubt that the overseas police stations are providing Chinese policing services in foreign countries. Meanwhile, the Spanish newspaper El Correo confirmed on Sunday that the overseas stations were indeed used to persuade Chinese people to return to China for trial. The Spanish Interior Ministry has launched an investigation into the matter. Austrian President Alexander Van der Bellen won a clear majority of votes in the election on Sunday, October 9th, thus avoiding a runoff. He will get a second 6-year term. In the election, the far-right Freedom Party, the FPO, was the only party in parliament to field a candidate against Van der Bellen. All of the other Austrian major parties had explicitly or implicitly backed Van der Bellen. According to the official preliminary results, Van der Bellen received 54.6% of the vote. His closest opponent was Walter Rosenkrantz of the Freedom Party with 19.1%. Winning a majority is not difficult, but winning an absolute majority, that is, getting more votes than all of the other candidates combined, is a remarkable victory. The 78-year-old former leader of the Green Party won widespread support for his calm performance during a time of national crisis. Van der Bellen has been seen as a stable leader at a time of grave crisis when energy costs and inflation top voters' concerns. The Austrian president plays a largely ceremonial role, but he also has broad powers. He has oversight during periods of transition and turmoil in the country. The president is the commander-in-chief of the military. He can fire the chancellor and even the entire government. The nationwide protests in Iran that were sparked by the death of the 22-year-old Iranian woman Mahsa Amini have entered their 4th week. On Saturday, October 8th, the news broadcast from the Islamic Republic of Iran news network, the IRINN, was suddenly hacked. A news bulletin was interrupted by protests against the country's leader. Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency reported that the IRINN was broadcasting a clip of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, attending a meeting in the southern city of Bashir, when suddenly a black background appeared on the screen and a cartoon mask with a beard and thick eyebrows appeared. After the cartoon mask flashed, a photo suddenly appeared on the screen with Khamenei in the center. Above him, there was a roaring fire burning around him and his face being constantly targeted by a red bullseye. Several young Iranian women who died in the protest last month appeared below Khamenei's picture. The picture also had protest slogans, including "Stand up and fight, join us," "The blood of our youth is dripping from your hands," and other slogans encouraging more people to join the protests. After a few seconds of the hacking incident, the station resumed normal programming. The people organizing the action call themselves Justice for Ali. They posted the video on their social media accounts saying, "By popular demand, we have fulfilled our promise and done incredible things to liberate Iran." Human rights groups say that more than 150 people have been killed since the protests in the Islamic Republic began on September 17th. Former Representative Tulsi Gabbard announced on October 11th that she is leaving the Democratic Party. Part of the reason is the Democratic administration's double standard for enforcing the law. For example, around the time that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, activists began protesting in front of Supreme Court justices' homes. This is illegal because federal law prohibits protesting in front of the justices' homes with the intent to influence them. However, neither Joe Biden nor the government reacted. In addition, at the same time, the government itself violated the law by arresting pro-life activists. Gabbard said, "When the party in power doesn't believe in the rule of law, but they are in charge of writing and enforcing laws, our democracy is doomed." She also said, "Today's Democratic Party does not believe in our constitutionally protected rights to free speech." Tulsi Gabbard, who is 41, represented Hawaii in Congress from 2013 to 2021. She chose to run for president in 2020 instead of re-election in Hawaii, and she later dropped out of the race to endorse Joe Biden. Gabbard has become increasingly critical of the Democrats' growing extremism on issues such as education, gender, and war. Gabbard said, "I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party. It's now under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers, driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms enshrined in our Constitution, and who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police, who protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war." She also called on other Democrats to leave the party. Gabbard did not say whether she would join the Republican Party or any other party. When a party's elite all start leaving, the party's survival is in danger. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. If you want more Front Page, please join our membership site for in-depth reports and sensitive news that you cannot see on YouTube. Your donation and your membership subscription are really helping us to continue to tell you the truth. Again, thank you for watching today. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.